Hey guys, and welcome back to Take 3 Productions. I am Matt Maverick Kearns, and if you can't tell from this jacket that I'm wearing in, let's just see, 68 degrees outside, we are reviewing Top Gun Maverick, the box office sensation that is breaking records and just being generally awesome. And with me to talk about this incredible movie, we have Michael K. Mike, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great. I feel a need.
The
The need
need to
for
talk about Top Gun Maverick or Speed, one or the other, and we just there we go. So if I did not already know the answer to this question, I would ask Mike what his feelings were on the original Top Gun, but you can go and find that on Mike's own show. Mike, do some personal promotion right now.
yeah. So a few weeks ago, I saw Top Gun for the first time, and Matt actually joined myself and Brock on our fresh takes on his channel Organoid Zero. Um, Long story short, I while I didn't grow up with the movie, so I don't have the same nostalgia. I still had a blast watching it. Um, and with this movie, I've now seen it 3 times, all 3 times in Dolby. So I have probably
Beautiful.
the most complete experience seeing this film.
Yes, more complete than mine, but as me and Mike talked off air, I have seen Top Gun way more times than Mike has. I don't remember. Top Gun is one of those movies that falls into a category of film that I love, but if you had a gun to my head, I could not tell you when I've seen the movie for the first time. And that's because I've watched it so often. It is one of my comfort movies. I swear I watch it every couple of months. I adore the film. That's why when this idea of a sequel was happening, I was like, I don't know. Years later, like, because you can have they've done sequels to movies years later, and they're not very good sometimes. Um, but obviously the trailers were coming out, and I was like, okay, this looks like it could be cool. And then it got delayed, and I went, oh, okay. Then
It got delayed a couple times. I checked
yes,
Wikipedia, and there are 5 different release dates.
5. And every time I got a little bit more excited and a little bit more broken inside. But now the movie is out. And I'll just say right off the bat, I love this movie. I think this movie is incredible. I said it on Twitter and I'll repeat it here. I feel like one day we're going to talk about Top Gun Maverick in the same vein as Star Wars in regards to blockbuster movies. The reason is Star Wars came out post Vietnam, and people talk about how that was a movie that reinvigorated audiences and showed audiences, these new magical worlds and started firmly established, it showed heroes being the heroes and villains being the villains. And again, I use significant air quotes in a semi post COVID world. Top Gun Maverick is giving audiences escapism to another degree, and it is making audiences come back to the theaters and have a great time. And I think that's why this movie is going to be talked about like Star Wars when it comes to blockbusters, because that's what blockbuster movies are supposed to do. They are supposed to be escapism. They are supposed to show you new stuff and envelop you in the story and make you laugh, make you cry, make you excited. And that is what this movie is just continuing to do. So, Mike, I will ask you, what are your just sort of general opinions before you start getting into, specifics on stuff?
So my general opinions is right now, Top Gun Maverick is my second favorite movie of the year. Well, it's actually a tie between this and Everything Everywhere All at Once. if you want a bit more of an original sort of lower budget independent movie, then yeah, everything everywhere all at once is like clearly one of the best cinematic experiences that I've seen in a while. But for strictly a top shelf summer blockbuster, I don't know if you can get better than Top Gun. Like, I think this is probably one of the best action movies that I've seen since Mad Max Fury Road, which is another sort of legacy sequel that's like 30 plus years in the making.
Yeah, and that's one that I didn't really love, so that's why I was afraid for this one. But that's another review.
But yeah, this had like this honestly hit all of the like it checked off all the boxes. It had great flight sequences. The characters were all memorable. We'll get to Jennifer Connelly's character in a second, because there's some baggage with that.
Yes.
And also, just I think this might be Tom Cruise's best performance in ever.
I wouldn't say ever, because I mean, if you're saying ever, you have to factor in like Rain Man and A Few Good Men and Collateral and Jerry Maguire in there.
A Few Good Men.
Yeah. So
I'll say this, maybe
in an action movie, argument can be made.
Oh yeah, 100% in an action movie, but all time I'd say at the very least top 5 or top 10.
Yeah. Oh, top 10 easily, but yeah, top 5. It can be argued. Yeah. And yeah, let's just start there. Let's start there with the man who this film is named after, Tom Cruise. I love what we get from Pete Mitchell in this movie. I love the opening to where, one, he's living in a freaking hangar. Like, that's the only place where Maverick could live. I love that. And I also love he's getting ready to do this flight, and he puts on the old jacket that I had to take off because, once again, 68 degrees, and I was literally burning. And that's he puts on the old jacket and gets on the motorcycle and everything. And I kind of love that, because there is this sort of thing at the beginning of this movie that Maverick's not fully living in the past, but you know that he's longing for this time that is far gone for him. Yep. And I think that's great. And obviously that whole opening sequence with the sort of test jet and going 10 Gs, it's amazing. Everyone has heard the story about how that shot where he flies over Ed Harris, it was the only shot they had. It destroyed the set, and that's the only one they could use, but it looks awesome. Credit to either Ed Harris or his stunt double, who stood pretty firm as that jet flew overhead and destroyed the set.
I'm surprised it didn't like knock him on his ass.
Yeah, no, it's similar to Dark Knight when Joker blows up the hospital and the last charge didn't go off. And that's the only thing they had. So Heath Ledger couldn't be like, hey, Chris, what do you want to do? Because it's just like, no, you're going to ruin the take. And this is the only take we have. So, but then of course, obviously Maverick, there's this like nuclear sort of like building site or what, you've seen it 3 times. What exactly is it? It has to do with nuclear stuff.
It's like a,
is that a processing plant?
I think so.
Okay, so there's this nuclear processing plant, and they're going to have a team that's going to have to go in and destroy this. So they're bringing Maverick back to Top Gun to sort of help train and also select this team. Because we learned that Tom Kaczynski, aka Iceman, is an admiral in the Navy, and we learned that like Iceman has been helping to take care of Maverick a lot. Like, he's been making sure that Maverick He's always in the Navy, that he always has a job to do, and I love that. And we will get into Iceman later. But I love how that's sort of the start. I also love how I'm not sure how early into the film they discuss this, but at the end of the first movie, after Maverick goes on the mission and destroys the MiGs and everything, he gets his choice of service, and he chooses to be a Top Gun instructor. And that was my question, was at the beginning of this movie when he's doing all the testing, I'm like, wasn't he supposed to be an instructor at Top Gun and all this? I love that he explains in the movie that he was for only 2 months, and then he was just too manic for Top Gun. I really love that. I in a way I love that, but it's also funny because if you think Top Gun is, I think it's a 4-week program or something, so he was only there for a few classes, and they were just like, nope, get out. So it's nice that they, sort of reference that, and but yeah, so he comes back, and obviously one of the pilots that is going to be selected possibly is Rooster, played by Miles Teller, who is Goose's son from the original film. That whole relationship and everything is great, but let's, Mike, I know I'm just rambling here, and this is what happens when you hop on screen, you don't have quite an idea. What do you think about Maverick in this movie, and sort of where we pick up on him and where he sort of ends off? As someone who said this is possibly Tom Cruise's best performance.
I think this is the perfect place to kind of establish where he's been at all this time, and partially that's because Tom Cruise is, while he's like getting up there in age, like mentally and physically, he's like in like the best shape of his life.
Yeah.
So, a lot of his characters, especially recently, are, the daredevil types, the ones who will like, do pretty much anything. So it kind of makes sense for him to feel the most at home when he's like in the trenches or in the sky, doing what he loves. So I like that. That's how we're introduced to him after all this time, because it would have been so like stereotypical for him to just kind of be the teacher, and to like sort of be
for him to be Viper from the original. Yeah. Which you could have, there is a version of this movie that you could do, which is like Maverick. Okay, maybe he's not the head of Top Gun, but he could be like Michael Ironside in the original. He's one of, he's an aged instructor there, and now Maverick's got to get pulled into active duty for this mission. You could have done that. Hundreds of action movies have done those plots before, to where it's the one straight guy he's been retired for a bit, and now he's got to get pulled back in. I mean, Mission Impossible 3 in a way was that, because in that movie, Ethan Hunt was an instructor at MIF, but he's pulled back in for a mission. But I'm glad they didn't do that, because I think that would have been a disservice to the Pete Mitchell Maverick character.
Yeah.
What agreed. I also love about this is that death of Goose and everything that's happened to him is still affecting him. That moment when he's thrown out of the bar, and it's kind of playful because he can't afford the tab and everything, but when Rooster starts saying great balls of fire and everybody, and Penny sees it, that look when Maverick's looking in the window at that is just like, and he's having the flashbacks, he is broken. Like,
this was one of like the 3 scenes that I was like actually shedding tears in the theater, especially the first time I saw this.
Yeah, I was getting emotional. It's such a beautifully done scene, and again, I think Tom Cruise doesn't always get the credit for being as good of an actor as he is, because he doesn't say anything, but that look when he's walking up to the window is, you didn't need the flashback to the original. I like that they had it, but it's just all in his face that he's just like, oh my God, like, I have lost so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. And I feel like that leads into Miles Teller's Rooster. Mike, what did you think about Miles Teller in this film?
Oh, he was great down to everything from like the way they cut his hair and the mustache. He's like basically a spitting image of his old man, but also just personality wise, he's how should I say this? He certainly has a chip on his shoulder,
Yeah.
knowing what happened to his dad, and also knowing that for whatever reason, it's because of Maverick that he's kind of held back professionally. And the reason why I like that is it adds a second layer to the tension between these two, because again, it would have been so easy for the conflict to just be you were like you flew with my dad and he's gone, so now I hate you.
Yeah, I agree. It could have been just that, but I like that they add this other element when Rooster's talking to who's the female pilot? I've only
Phoenix?
seen this movie once. I'm sorry?
Phoenix?
Phoenix. I thought it was Phoenix. I was going to say Phoenix. Look at right. Your insights serve you well. When he's talking to Phoenix about how Maverick had his papers pulled, and I believe he said it added like 4 more years into him trying to get into the Navy.
Yep.
And I like that there's that added element, and then of course, Maverick talks about later on with Penny. It's either Penny or it's the other commanding officer. I can't remember which. That he did that because Meg Ryan, whose character name I can't remember from Top Gun, asked him to do it before she died. She was essentially like, I don't want him to become a pilot. Maverick, stop him from becoming a pilot.
Yeah,
And he
this
didn't.
this was the conversation that he had with Penny.
And he did not tell Rooster because he didn't want Rooster to be angry at his mom. He didn't want Rooster to be angry at his mom. So there's also just that really beautiful element with the character Maverick, that he's like, this kid already hates me because he thinks I killed his dad. He should just hate me more and not hate his mom. Which adds a great nobility to a character who we knew in the original had nobility, but it was sort of hidden under the surface of a kid who's dealing with a lot of stuff in that first movie.
Mm-hmm.
But we've mentioned her name a couple times. But now let's get into Penny, played by Jennifer Connelly, who is like, Jennifer Connelly is one of those actresses who's just like pretty much always good in everything she does. But Mike, I'm gonna let you say, as the Top Gun non-aficionado on here, we both missed something that even I missed, but I'll let you discuss how Jennifer Connelly's character does relate back to the original film.
Okay, so there is a character that we never see in the original named Penny Benjamin. She is the Admiral's daughter, mentioned twice in the film. The first time is when I forget his name in the movie, but Principal Strickland.
Yeah, James Tolkien. Yeah, Principal Strickland. Yeah,
his character is like listing off all of Maverick's misdeeds, and then he says, "And one Admiral's daughter." Goose goes over to him, Penny Benjamin, and then Meg Ryan's character mentions her again during the Great Balls of Fire scene. So she gets 2 mentions in the original, and now Jennifer
she's
Connelly.
mentioned in that scene.
Briefly.
Really, I don't remember. I remember her saying that their hearts breaking. Or maybe she does mention them. I don't know. I'd have to watch. I just watched the movie, but I can't recall that. I can neither confirm or deny that. But regardless, I think that is such a cool addition. That was not necessary, but I think it adds so much to her character, because obviously at the beginning of this movie, we sort of learn that her and Maverick have had an on and off relationship. Whenever it seems like they're going to get serious, he always magically has a deployment somewhere. And I like that now, instead of it just being which in these years later sequels is a very normal thing, to where it's like, oh, here's this really important character that wasn't in the original, but it's like, no, we didn't see her, but she knew Maverick back then. And so it just adds another layer to it. But Mike, what did you think about Jennifer Connelly's Penny in this film?
I'd say, and I might be biased because Connelly's one of my favorite actresses, but I thought their relationship was wonderful. Something that Cruise often gets criticized for in a lot of these movies is he usually doesn't have the best chemistry with his female co-stars, but honestly, that might just be because of the age difference. There's only like at most like 9 or 10 year difference between Connelly and Cruise, and this is like the best romantic chemistry that I think he's had with anyone.
I don't know. Renee Zellweger and Jerry Maguire, they're pretty good. Days of Thunder, I mean, he did marry his co-star from that movie, so
true.
Yeah, but I mean, that I think this is like leagues above like The Mummy and American Made and stuff, to where it's just like there's nothing between those characters here. And again, going back to this, I think this is possibly in Tom Cruise's career. Fallout a little, but I think this is the first time to where Tom Cruise is finally able to admit to the world he's getting older. And that's kind of the point. And with this relationship with Penny, it is this sort of sense for this character that, like, no, I'm ready to take things more serious.
Yeah.
And she's so resistant. And, but there's this great, like, the whole boat scene is a really great moment of connection between the two of them, to where she's the smart one in that scenario. He allows himself to, because you could totally rework that scene to where it's Maverick who knows how to do everything, but it's like, no, I mean, he spent pretty much his entire life around planes. He didn't know how boats work.
I love the line where he's like, it's like, I don't ride boats. I land on them.
Yeah, like I love that, because you could rework that scene, but this movie, I just want to keep gushing about this movie, and I know that anyone listening to this kind of wants to hear that, but probably doesn't. But I just, like, this is a movie that, one, I really want to go and see in the theaters again, and two, this is a movie I can't wait to own on Blu-ray and to just be able to watch. And also, once it's on Blu-ray, that's when, like with Star Wars, scenes will just be on YouTube. Like, I'm looking forward to just having moments to just like go back and watch again. And that to me is a sign of an incredibly great movie compared to, and again, this is just my own bias, compared to The Batman, which is a movie that I really like. I've said it, it's the first time in a long time when I was in a theater, I looked down at my watch because I was bored. And this movie, I'm just like, I could have gone with this movie being an hour longer. I loved it that much. But the supporting cast in this movie is fantastic. Jon Hamm. Jon Hamm, again, one of those actors who is just like always good in everything. And he can be dramatically good. He can be comedically good. You have, I hope I get the actor's name right, who plays Hangman, Glenn Powell?
Yep.
I've loved him since I saw him Figures. He played the astronaut. And again, that character is 100% different from this character, because that character is a very noble person who stands up for Taraji P. Henson. That movie is like, I'm not flying without her. And then this movie, as Phoenix says, he's called Hangman because he'll leave you out to dry. And he's such a smart, like that moment when he reveals to everybody that Rooster's dad flew with Maverick and he got killed. Like, he's such a, and we'll talk about this when we get to talk about the climax. He's got so much Han Solo from A New Hope in him, to where he is the thief with the heart of gold. He is this dick, but he's got something in him that you can't fully hate him. Phoenix, I thought, was really great too. Bob, Who doesn't love
Bob.
Bob in this movie? Who doesn't love Bob?
Oh, I love Bob. It's hard to pick a favorite out of the new cast. If I had to, like, yeah, Glenn Powell's Hangman is
Yeah,
certainly one of
he's my
them.
favorite of the new cast.
I think my second favorite has to be Phoenix. Let me get her name. Monica Barbaro plays Phoenix, and she's excellent.
And she's, what I love about her is in movies like this, you can have the action chick, and it's gotta be, we gotta talk about how great she is, and she don't need no man to save her and everything. Or you can just have an Ellen Ripley type, which is, no, she's just a badass, and we all know she's a badass, and no one has to reference that she's a badass. She just is one. And I'm really happy that like that moment when they're playing pool and she just the cue immediately into Hangman, like it's a great moment. And yeah, and also there's sort of the subtle romance between Phoenix and Rooster that they don't focus on, but also wasn't needed because this is Maverick's movie, and so his romance should be top billing. But again, just a great fun young cast. And even I love the tributes to the original movie. Obviously, one of the criticisms of the original movie is the bar scene, when they're all hanging out or everything. Everybody's in their dress whites, and so many people talked about the fact that, like, why would no one would wear their, if they were going to wear their uniforms, they would be wearing their like khakis. They wouldn't be wearing their dress whites. And so in this movie, they're all just wearing their khakis. They're not wearing their dress whites. The football scene, which is definitely a tribute to the volleyball scene, but I like how in this, to where it in that movie, it was just another example of Maverick and Iceman having a sort of conflict with each other. Here it's the opposite. It's Maverick's using it as a teaching tool, because Jon Hamm shows up and he's just like, we're trying to train these kids for a mission and you're playing on the beach. And he's like, no, this is training. It's two-way football. It's offense and defense. They have to work as a team to win. And that's brilliant. So it's, in a way, you're like, oh, we get the sports scene, but it serves
a purpose.
It actually serves a purpose instead of just being a scene that 100% attributes the original film to, like, minus Meg Ryan and oh my god,
and that's the one difference between the original and this movie. From what I remember watching the original, it's like the school was kind of the main plot until everyone's drafted, let's go fight. In this one, there's more urgency. Like the training is because of the mission, not necessarily.
Well, I've taken a slight bit of umbrage because some people have been saying, like, oh, in the original the mission didn't actually matter. It's like, well, that's
the mission matters, but
there wasn't a mission. The whole thing is Top Gun is a real naval academy that people get sent to. The mission wasn't important because it didn't show up until the end of the movie. There wasn't a mission to be had. Exactly. In this movie, and again, they talk about that these are graduates of Top Gun who were at the top of their class being brought back for this mission. So it's not exactly the same plot. I just take a little bit, I just feel like that sometimes people don't watch the movie nearly as much as me, who are just like, oh, it's like, yeah, there was no mission. Like, Maverick and Goose were literally just being sent to Top Gun. Like, that's the whole thing. There wasn't a mission they were prepping for. They were just going to Top Gun like regular Navy pilots go to Top Gun. They're probably pilots right now at it.
And I like that distinction, because it does kind of set these two movies apart.
Yeah. And I think it also does make the mission a little bit more dangerous, because it is there very much from the start that, this is the end goal. Whereas the original, it just sort of came up at graduation that it's like, well, we have this mission and Iceman, Maverick, you guys have been selected, you gotta go and fight it. I like the fact that keeps at the Top Gun tradition of the enemies are totally the Russians, but we're not 100% going to say they're Russians, but they are the Russians. That's great because in the original, that was the whole thing. And let's just talk about the mission. So obviously, um, we were talking about this off air. It's a sort of nuclear, or maybe we were talking about on air. I don't know. Me and Mike were talking a while before we started recording, but essentially, there's this like nuclear sort of like processing plant or something. Essentially, there's a place where they can make bombs to blow people up. And the Navy's got to go in there and blow it up. But unfortunately, it's a really small target they got to hit in a very limited amount of time. So they have to fly through this very narrow area to try to avoid the big guns from destroying them and also avoid the enemy fighters from seeing them and destroying them as well. Does this sound familiar to a film from 1977? Yes, it does. This is very much like Smokey and the Bandit. Okay. Star Wars. Yeah. There are so many, like, the moment, like, I mean, just the whole thing that it's a very small, like, point that you have to hit. Like, there's so many, but I like the fact that, one, as a gigantic Star Wars fan, I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't until I watched a review where someone said that I was like, "Oh my god, it is!" But I mean,
that was my reaction too. I'm like, "Wait a minute."
Something about that does seem familiar. It kind of made me love the movie more because it feels not so much a ripoff as an influence. Very similar to Star Wars. How Star Wars was influenced by tons of movies and everything, but like in Star Wars, there's the moment between Han and Greedo, which is very similar to a moment in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. To where I forget the character's name, but he's sitting in the bath, and the dude with one arm that he had shot, and he's like, he comes up to him, he's just like, "I'm waiting for this for a long time. I've been very good at learning to shoot with my right hand." And then he just blows him out of the tub, and he's like, "You gotta shoot, don't talk." Very similar to the cantina scene, but it doesn't feel like Lucas ripped off Good, Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah, it's just an homage, like an organic homage.
And again, because there's the moment when the laser sight isn't working, and Rooster's gonna have to just trust his instincts and his judgment to destroy the giant machine. Use the Force, Rooster. Okay. Someone's got to get Anthony Edwards in a recording booth and just say, "Use the Force, Rooster," just so that we can overlay that into edits of this movie. Because I want to see it. And then, even after that, there's the moment to where the countermeasures are out, the bullets are out, and it looks like all is lost. And who shows up at the last minute to save the hero? None other than the guy who was kind of a dick before, but he's ultimately a good guy underneath, Hangman, coming in and saving the day like Han Solo. I loved it. It was great. And honestly, now it just like makes me like it more because I love Star Wars. And now it's like combining some of my favorite loves into one thing. But Mike, what did you think about that whole sort of final climactic sequence of the mission actually being completed?
There was a lot of tension in these scenes. Like, so going back to when Maverick was hit, obviously, like there's no way he was going to be taken out by a missile. But in the moment, you are kind of feeling like, "Oh shit, Maverick's down. Now what?" Until like seconds later, we actually see, no, he's alive. He's just, he's just taken a fall. And then just from there on, that's when the action and the tension just continues to rise. As now it's basically these two are on their own. They've got bandits like pretty much cornering them. All the weapons are gone. and then just at the last second is when Hangman rushes in.
Yeah, it's great. And again, it's like I was thinking that too. I'm like, they are not gonna kill off Maverick. And then you're like, oh no, Maverick's alive. And then Rooster shows up, and then you're like, they're not gonna kill off Rooster. Where I really hope we're not in that. And I thought the same thing when the thing happened to Phoenix and Bob. I was like, oh, I really like those characters. We have to be in this movie, but we're not. And I like that. I like that we're not in those movies. And yeah, and again, just the way they work in the F-14. I wasn't even thinking about it, but they found a way to get Maverick in an F-14 again.
You know what it reminded me of in Captain America: The Winter Soldier when Steve like when Steve
has to wear his original suit.
Yeah,
that's a good comparison. It is because that's a great comparison, Mike. But yeah, it was awesome, and I love how like Rooster, who obviously they never say when he became a pilot, but obviously somewhere in the 2010s, late 2000s to 2010s, probably. He's looking at that ship as like a dinosaur level. Maverick's like, hey, I destroyed 3 MiGs flying one of these, okay? And then Rooster gets in the back spot, and I love how Maverick's like telling him, like get radar up, like contact base, and he's like, okay, how do I do that? And Maverick's like, I don't know, if I was your dad's position. Like, I love that it's like, once again, like the boat thing, you could have had it be like, oh, well, you got to flip this switch and everything, but no, Maverick's like, I fly it. Your dad handled that whole position. That wasn't me. And again, that whole sequence of the F-14 and Maverick flying his ship from the original and just taking care of business until he doesn't Hangman coming in. It's so exhilarating. I mean, that whole moment, like, we didn't see countermeasures being used in the original, but that sequence when the missiles are being fired and the countermeasures are going off and there's explosions and you think maybe they got hit and you're hearing there's smoke in the air, and you're just like, oh my God. But unlike, let's say, a Michael Bay Transformers movie to where a lot of stuff is happening and you can't quite make it out, you can make everything out in this. Mm-hmm. And it's exhilarating because you're making it all out and you're feeling nervous because you've liked these characters and you don't want to see anyone die. And this is great action movies. This is, this is Jack and Annie trying to get off of the bus in Speed. This is Riggs fighting the South African guy on the boat and getting stabbed with the knife. This is John McClane getting the shit taken out of him by Carl and just being beaten to hell and then beating him back. Like, this is our heroes being put in a horrible position, but we love to see them come out of it. I thought this whole ending was exhilarating. I just want to keep gushing about this movie. Like, I don't really have a lot of negatives to say. Maybe when I see it more times, but I'm also the guy who doesn't have a lot of negatives to say about the original. Yeah, is it cheesy? But that's kind of the point, I think.
Yeah, it's for better or for worse, the original Top Gun is very much a product of its time.
Yeah.
And this kind of is too, but in a more positive way. Someone we haven't really talked about is the director, Joseph Kaczynski, who I don't think is. I mean, people are loving this movie, sure, but I don't think people are really appreciating like his specific skill set as a director. Like, he is so good when it comes to A, staging a good action sequence, and B, actually giving you a reason to care about these characters in these scenes.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm sorry we didn't mention him earlier, but yeah, he crafted an incredible movie. And he had some really fun sequences, like the football scene and the Great Balls of Fire. But yeah, when it gets to that action stuff, man, dude knows what he's doing. You know, he directed Oblivion, if I'm not mistaken. So we worked with Tom Cruise before.
Yep. And he's also done Tron Legacy. So
Oh, okay.
not his. This isn't his first Legacy sequel.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah. Oh, ironic. I see.
And
What
then
you did there.
he's also worked with Miles Teller and Jennifer Connelly before in a movie that came out in 2017 called Only the Brave.
You know what? Honestly, it's funny you say that because that could also explain. Sometimes when you have shorthands of actors, it makes it a lot easier. And I think you see it so many times. You see it with, like pairings like Scorsese and DiCaprio or De Niro or something. When you work with a director multiple times, there's a shorthand, or Mel Gibson and Danny Glover with Richard Donner on The Lethal Weapon. When he's like, there's a shorthand when you know the directors and the actors trust the directors. And I think you see that coming off because all three of those main actors worked with him on previous projects. Yeah, I think this is the sign of great movie making when I just want to keep gushing about a movie and I don't want to nitpick it. I don't want to be like, this scene right here was not very good and I was very upset about it. It's like, no, there wasn't anything. I don't care. Definitely wasn't glaring enough to ruin the whole movie for me. And is this a perfect movie? No. And I'm sure as time goes on, like with Star Wars, look, Star Wars, Jaws, these movies that everybody, Godfather, now go on YouTube and you'll find hundreds of people who are like, well, in this scene, Sonny Corleone is actually standing on the right side, but then in the next cut, he's on the left. And it's just like, who cares? Who cares?
For me, it's about like the emotional beats. It's about, how invested am I in the characters. I'm not one to nitpick like the smallest details. But that being said, there is a take going on, at least one that I've seen on Twitter, involving
we almost didn't talk about this. Thank you.
Yeah, we kind of have to bring up a very crucial moment with Val Kilmer coming back to play Iceman, but kind of in his final moments.
Yeah, so throughout the movie, for those who haven't seen it, Tom is texting with Maverick a lot and everything, but then there's a moment to where he says to Maverick, I need to see you. And Maverick, it's right after the scene when Hangman has revealed that Goose died flying with Maverick, and there's this whole thing, and Maverick's like, nah, I can't do it. And then he's like, no, I need to see you. And it's revealed by his wife that I forget, is it cancer? I forget what they say.
They don't say
They don't specifically say it. Again, this is where I've only seen it once, but essentially she's like, it's not good. Nobody really knows. He can't really talk anymore. And he walks into Iceman's office, and there is Val Kilmer with a haircut very similar to the original, which I appreciated. And at first, he's talking to him mainly through the computer because obviously in real life, I believe it's lung cancer Val Kilmer has, and so it's very difficult for him to speak. I'm going to take a pause here and just say, go watch Val on Amazon Prime. It is incredible. It was my favorite movie of 2021. And that will go far more into what is happening in Val Kilmer's unfortunate personal life and medical and everything. But then we get this moment at the end to where he asks Maverick, using what little voice he has, who is the better pilot. I think if you had left this movie to just the text conversations, that would be such a disservice to Val Kilmer. I think, and I talked with Mike before we went on air, in the original movie, Goose was Maverick's brother. And what I like about this movie is it showed that after Goose's death and after the mission to where Maverick saved Iceman's life, and there's that whole great moment, you could be my wayman anytime. Bullshit,
Bullshit.
you could be
You can be
mine.
mine.
It wasn't just a BS thing. It was a true that like they flew together in so many missions after that. They worked together and they developed a brotherhood. And what I like about this is Maverick knows Iceman's dying, and now he has to lose his other brother. And to just leave that to text, I think like I said, it would have been such a disservice, and it was such a beautiful moment between, and again, even just in the sense of, these are two guys who, when they did the original Top Gun, they were young and up and coming. Val Kilmer had just done Top Secret, and Tom Cruise was, he was coming off of The Outsiders and Legend and all this stuff. They were just starting their careers, and now they're older and life has happened. And so to have this sort of beautiful moment of connection between them again, it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie. Mike, what did you think about Iceman, sort of his use in this film?
I don't think this movie would have worked without this scene. Partially because of what you said. The whole reason that he came back to North Island is because of Iceman. So, and even Kilmer said that if he's gonna come back, it wasn't just gonna be for like a cheap cameo. He wanted his involvement to like mean something, and knowing that this was like when he was still, like sick at the time with the cancer, it made that moment it made that moment hit like all the more it was that much more effective, like knowing he was
it's real, that it's not just a movie thing.
Yeah.
It's not just that they were like, oh, let's give Iceman cancer. Like, that like, no, they're really taking something real that has happened to Val Kilmer and putting it in the film, and it kind of makes it more real.
Yeah. And like, because he was in so much pain, like he really did have difficulty speaking. So in that moment, what they did is like, from what I read, there were like 40 different AI programs that were like constructing his voice from, I guess, like other like voice samples.
So kind of like what they
of
did with Mark Hamill and Mandalorian and Book of Boba?
Kind of, but at least in the Mandalorian, that's more of Hamill's performance, and they just kind of digitally altered his appearance. This is like,
really, because I thought in the Disney gallery that they said it's all the AI voice technology. It's not actually
I could
Mark Hamill.
I could be mistaken, but I know with this movie, that's not
Val Kilmer.
Yeah, that's not Kilmer's organic voice.
Okay. Regardless, it's still, and again, I like that we learn that throughout the movie, because Jon Hamm even says that he's like, you're only here at the request of Admiral Kaczynski. I like that even in this moment when he asks him who was the better pilot, it's still Tom trying to make Maverick feel okay and take care of his brother. And I really like that. It's a really wonderful moment. I think we could sort of start getting into wrap up territory here, but this is just a wonderful movie. This is just a beautiful film. I can't wait to re-experience it. As I said at the top of the show, I really hope that this continues to have success, and I really hope that this does go on to those lists of the great blockbusters, because it deserves it, because it is a great ride and it's action packed, but it has a great emotional core to it. And I think that's also part of its success. I think that is the fact that it's the first time in his career that it feels like Tom Cruise is letting his age be a factor. And that is really cool.
One thing I am kind of curious
yeah.
about is what does Tom's career look like after this movie and after Mission Impossible 8 or Dead Reckoning Part 2? Like, is he going to do what Liam Neeson's doing now and like say he's going to retire from acting or from action movies, but then continue to do more well into his 70s? Or do you think he'll go back to more dramatic fare?
That's a great question. And honestly, I have no answer. I'm sure if you ask Tom Cruise right now, he doesn't have an answer. Because I will agree with a lot of people who have been saying this. I think Tom Cruise is the last big movie star. Like, Tom Cruise single-handedly kept this movie away from streaming.
Yep.
Like, Paramount, when they kept delaying it like 3 times, they wanted to throw it on Paramount Plus. And that was something I really liked at the beginning of this. I'm not sure if in all theaters I saw in Dolby, but they had that moment to where it's right before the movie starts. Tom Cruise talks about how great it was making this movie and how it was made for the theaters and everything.
I think that's in front of like every screening, and I love that.
And that's because Tom Cruise is the last true movie star, that he has that power. And again, some people could, be like, oh, no actor should have that power on a set. But it's like, well,
He's also the producer.
When you're Tom Cruise and that like the man learned how to fly an F-18 for this movie, and he literally constructed with the Navy a 3-week training program for the actors. Like, it's not like the man doesn't, it's not like he's sitting in his trailer, waiting to show up on set. Like, this man is involved from the movie the whole way through. He's in it 100%. I still am not totally convinced that Tom Cruise isn't going to kill himself going to space in the next Mission Impossible movie. I feel like that might be how we lose Tom Cruise, is in whatever stunt he does in space in the next one, which, like, at this point, just like, he's going to be like that Red Bull guy and he's going to jump from like the space station, isn't he? That's definitely what he's going to do. I don't know how it's going to work in the movie, but he's going to do it. Probably
they'll find a way.
They'll find a way. He'll honk at Vin Diesel in space as well. The crossover. And again, he's making these types of movies, so you know what? Let him keep being the biggest movie star in the world. Or not he's not the biggest, but I think Ben Bateman and Andrew Guy have talked about this on their stuff before. They used to run Action Anatomy, now they do Action Industries, their own channel. Go check them out. They're great guys. But they've talked about how, and John Roca and Steve Morris have talked about this on the Cinephiles before, he may not always be the biggest star, but since 1986, Tom Cruise is, except for maybe that period after Mission Impossible 3 to what pulled him out, to like Tropic Thunder, to where
so really just like 2 years
really come out, and the Katie Holmes, the Oprah Winfrey thing, and then the Matt Lauer interview. But then he came back and he's been on an upswing, and he's making stuff like this, and I'm just like, go Tom, go. Yeah. So Mike, what are sort of your wrap up thoughts on Top Gun Maverick as a person who has seen it 3 times?
Well, one thing we should talk about is the music. So
I have the soundtrack, actually.
Oh, you have the soundtrack?
Yeah, on CD. It's under a bunch of stuff, so I can show it on my phone. There we go. I have the soundtrack. And I've been listening to the Lady Gaga song "Hold My Hand" like on repeat. It's
so good.
I just keep listening to it over and over again. I don't know why. It's great. And talking about Talk
what
about
works
waiting for
about
this
it?
movie to release on Blu-ray. I can't wait for the really great editor to kind of like how they have for Take My Breath Away. I can't wait for someone to do a great edit of the movie with that song.
Yeah. You know why I love that song so much? It's because it sounds like it could have belonged like on the soundtrack of the original. Like it sound like
Yeah,
it has a little bit of that like modern production, but
yeah,
it also sounds nostalgic.
yeah, and also it works really well with the movie.
Hmm.
You know, like the whole ending with Rooster and Maverick, with Penny and Maverick, like this coming together, you know, very simply hold my hand, like we're together, we're in this. And talking about that, I really love, and I was hoping they were going to do it. I felt like they were, but the ending to where it's everybody's, you know, character name, you know, the actors and a little shot of them, just like the original,
Hmm.
when they were playing You Lost That Loving Feeling. It was really great. And it's, yeah, it's and the rest of the soundtrack is really, you know, I mean, it's Hans Zimmer's doing some of the music. And again, it, okay, it's not, let's say, to the level of John Williams in Star Wars, but in a similar vein, it doesn't overtake the scenes. It works with the scenes.
Yeah.
Like it enhances the scenes.
I also love how in the opening they do pretty much a note perfect like recreation of
Oh,
the
the
original.
opening, yeah, because they have the exact same opening titles, which is talking about what exactly Top Gun is. They have Danger Zone in the exact same moment, which I was wondering if Danger Zone was. I knew they were going to work it in, but I honestly thought, which again they get it right out of the way, and they literally just repeat the opening from the original. I thought maybe because when I was seeing the trailers and there's the moment when Maverick has his old jacket on, I thought maybe that was when they were going to do it. But they only used it that one time, which I thought
Yep.
was interesting. They only used it the one time. I guess they didn't want to pay Kenny Loggins too much money. Uh, Whereas in the original, Danger Zone is played 3 separate times in that movie. If there's one semi nitpick I'll give it this movie, as someone who loves the original, Charlie gets no mention whatsoever. She's
Yeah.
only in the quick flashback to the original Great Balls of Fire. And it's fine. It doesn't matter. I just would have liked even just a quick shout out. Like you could have had when they're talking about the intel, they could have said the intel provided from Charlie, you know, or her actual name, which I can't remember. I don't remember her call sign, but you could have just had something quick like that to where it was, you know, to where it's referenced that she still is kind of around, but she's not. It's
I brought
fine.
this up in my other review, but I was curious like whether because we know that Kelly McGinnis is no longer acting, or at least not
Mhm.
as prominent as she was before.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if you were either it was a mutual decision that she didn't return, or maybe she had a falling out with Cruz or something. But I agree, it does kind of feel weird that not like there's not even a mention of like we broke up or anything. Just
Even
it
you can even have had, you know, like when Penny's talking about all this stuff, you could have mentioned the relationship with Charlie, you know?
yeah.
Like stuff like that, you know. I feel like she didn't have to be in the movie, but it is weird for someone who's literally on the poster with Tom Cruise for the original to not have her mentioned whatsoever. It was a little odd. It doesn't ruin the movie, and it's really only matter. Like this is the type of sequel to where my brother went with me to this movie. Somehow, despite living in the same household as me, he's never seen the original, and he enjoyed the movie and was totally fine. So you don't have to have seen the original, and if you haven't, stuff like that, you wouldn't even know that Maverick. But it is just it's a little odd. And who
Yeah.
knows? It's possible that I'm sure stuff was deleted out of this movie. So who knows when the Blu-ray comes out and there are deleted scenes, maybe there is a deleted scene to where there is a reference to Charlie. It's possible.
Oh yeah. But that's really the only negative I have, and even that's like the
And that's
tiniest of
even, again,
nitpicks.
this has come from, out of the two of us, the biggest Top Gun fan. It's a, that's like grasping at straws thing, and it's more just like, I would have liked just a, like I said, just a slight nod to the character. But we didn't get it, but it doesn't ruin this incredible movie. So Mike, final thoughts on Top Gun Maverick, and then tell the good people where they can find you on the interwebs.
Final thoughts are just go see this. It is one of the best times you'll have at the movie theater. And what's funny is even today, I might have been the youngest one in my screening. So clearly this is a 4-quadrant success. It's tied for my first favorite movie of the year. It's probably in my top 5 favorite Tom Cruise movies of all time, and it's certainly the best action movie that I've seen in the past 5 to 10 years.
Ooh.
But if you guys want more of my thoughts, you can find me on Twitter at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can also check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter and on YouTube at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on Podchaser, listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need escape? So do we.
My wrap-up thoughts, as someone who adores the original Top Gun, at this point, with only one viewing, I can't bring myself to say that I love this movie more than the original. On a technical level and on a sort of writing level, yes, this is the superior film. Although the technical is, I give it to Top Gun, the original came out almost 40 years ago, and so action movies and what we can do with cameras has improved, because if you watch the original Top Gun and you compare it to other stuff around that era, it was leagues ahead of what other stuff was doing. But obviously the scripting, it is a much more emotion driven script than the original. But yeah, I compare this movie to the Creed films and the Rocky. Creed 1 and 2 are superior movies to Rocky 4. But I've been watching Rocky 4 since I was in 3rd grade. So I can't bring myself to say I love Creed 1 and 2 more than Rocky 4. That is right now what I'm feeling about the original. And about this movie, because like I said, Top Gun is one of my comfort movies. And when a movie is your comfort film, it doesn't always have to be great. I go to Top Gun not because I need to have my mind blown. I go there because I want to hang out with these characters. I want to watch these incredible action scenes. I mean, I wrote a WordPress article to where I said Top Gun is the greatest 80s action movie of all time. You know, so I love the original, but I also love this one. And I think this is a beautiful movie. I think for Tom Cruise, this is such a great mark in his career, and I think it's a great example of legacy sequels can work. And the fact that you could have done a Top Gun 2 in the 90s, in the 2000s, but the fact that there has been almost 40 years between the Tom Cruise becoming a star in the original and the Tom Cruise that is who he is now, it's just one of those things to where time can just sort of make things better.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. So this is a great movie. Go, if you have a Dolby screen, go watch it. It's the best way to see this. I've never seen IMAX because I don't like the glasses, and I like the glasses. So with Dolby, you get all the great sound and screen without wearing glasses. That's why I go with Dolby myself. But this is incredible. You haven't seen it and you're listening to our spoiler talk. What are you doing? Go watch this movie. If you have seen it, Let us know in the comments what you think about Top Gun Maverick. Did you love it? Did you not love it? Don't be afraid if you didn't love it to talk about it, even though this movie is getting over the wall great reviews. Don't be afraid to ever share your mind ever about anything, positive and or negative. And you can find me on the interwebs at currents_Matthew on Twitter, MattMovies611 on YouTube, and right here as host of Second Look. A new episode should be coming out possibly this weekend on Star Trek The Motion Picture. One of my favorite Star Trek movies, and I'm really interested to share that. And I am also the host of the Fandom Podcast, which is on a bit of hiatus right now, mostly due to the fact that I can't find anyone to be on it. But hey, it's what happens when everybody in the world is busy with stuff. Although you can find the playlist on this channel. And I'm also the co-host of Simple Tricks and Nonsense with Abe Flores. A new episode which should be coming out soon. Me and Abe did a complete breakdown on the film Armageddon. You can also find episode 1 of Manning, Franks, and Mine's first part of a 6-part series on a James Bond retrospective, where we're going through each Bond actor leading up to the 60th anniversary of Dr. No. Obviously, the first episode was all about the films of Sean Connery, and coming out some point this month will be an episode on George Lazenby's outing. And at the end of this month, you can find me as a contributor to the online convention Iconicon, which brings together channels from from across the globe together to talk about a lot of great stuff. I have a video coming out during Iconicon, so be sure to check that out. I want to thank Mike for coming on and talking about this. Thank you for everyone who watched. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up and share the video around because word of mouth really helps. And please, if this is your first time on Take 3, consider subscribing. Check out all the great shows we got on here. So, yeah, this is a great movie. And we are requesting a flyby on out of here. Take care, everybody. Good night.